Forgiveness doesn't just take the parasite out of you. It removes the infrastructure of the parasite from the world. This is something I'm certain of. This is something I'm absolutely certain of. I know if there are people listening out there now, I know that when the fear hits you, when the anxiety hits you, when the depression knocks on your door, I know that takes a tremendous amount of courage because it absolutely feels real. But I'm telling you, it's not real. There's only one legitimate fear, and that's the fear of being separated from God or separated from your source, the mains electric. And that's a good fear because it's the beginning of wisdom.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who's out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest today is award-winning writer Geoff Thompson, and we're going to be talking about forgiveness and his book, 99 Reasons to Forgive, and Revenge Ain't One. First, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, theexplodinghuman.com. Over there, you can listen to episodes, read synopses, see photos of my guests, read a little bio on myself. There's also a YouTube channel where you can listen. That is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. And my guest today is Geoff Thompson. Geoff is an award-winning BAFTA writer. He's penned a number of films. He has an absolutely fascinating story. Geoff was sexually abused at age 11, and that manifested later on in life by a lot of violence and sexual acting out. He became a martial artist and was a bouncer in nightclubs and was surrounded by a lot of very dark things. In our talk and in his book, Geoff reveals the true definition and the incredible power of forgiveness, clearly defining the difference between forgiving and letting somebody off the hook. I have to say, as I talked to Geoff, I was very emotionally moved during the interview, and when I went back to edit it, I had the same feeling. He's somebody that really gets to the heart of the truth of who we are as human beings. I hope you enjoy listening to this as much as I did recording it. This is Geoff Thompson. Welcome to The Exploding Human, Geoff. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm very grateful.
Yes, and you are in Stratford-on-the-Avon.
Yeah, I'm about 100 yards from where Shakespeare was married.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
you weren't invited to the wedding, were you?
No, I wasn't. No, I was. Some days I do feel that old though, Bob.
Me too. How old are you? I'm 69.
I'm 63. You look really good.
Yeah. Well, I haven't had any alcohol in almost 40 years. So
yeah, same as that. I haven't drank since just before the year 2000. So about 23, 24 years.
Yeah. That stuff kind of stops working in the way you want it to. At least it did for me.
Yeah. I watched it work. It's evil with many of my friends. I lost my brother and my sister to alcohol. I gave it up as part of my Budo training. I gave it up as an exercise in cerebral control, in willpower. And I just never went back to it. But I watched my brother die at 42, watched my sister die at 53, leaving young families. It's quite tragic. So I've not missed it.
No, it is a devastating illness that takes a lot of people, and it doesn't care who it takes. You can be wealthy, you can be poor, you can be smart, you can be dumb. You can be charming. You can be a curmudgeon. The alcohol doesn't care. It just does what it does.
The interesting thing as well, Bob, is that I found with my sister and my brother, they didn't really die from alcohol. They died from denial. Just the way the disease works, the way the kind of energy in the drink works, is that allows you to believe you've got control of it.
Yes.
And right towards the end, they were still denying that they'd got anything wrong with them, and they lost autonomy completely. Even though their life was falling around about them, and their children were young. They knew what they were leaving. There was no reason in it at all. Just like I said, a pure possession of alcohol.
Yeah, it's they talk about it as the disease that tells you you don't have it.
That's exactly it.
And that's really.
I had a friend lost a kidney, and said the doctor said it's the alcohol, but I know it's not, and he died from it as well.
I mean, I'm smiling, but I'm smiling because it's so. It's so crazy. I mean, and they, when people say it's a mental health issue, it's a mental illness. That's a perfect evidence right there. Absolutely. What's the definition of insanity? Is repeating the same behavior, expecting different results. So, and that's what we do when we are in the disease and letting it have its way. So
interestingly as well, when I sat with my sister, she died about 3 years ago. I sat with her every day just before she died in hospital, and I knew I couldn't do anything. All I could do was administer love. So there was no judgment from me at all. I had no judgment, because I knew that she'd got this parasite in her, this infection. So I penetrated all of it. Even the days before she was dying, I could still make her laugh, because I just loved her. I had absolute unconditional love for her. It taught me about love. I remember praying and talking to God and saying, I don't know what to do for her. And the next day I was walking across the local fields, and there was probably 100 sheep stuck behind a fence, and one of them had escaped. There was a lost sheep. So I got the message straight away, and I thought, I've got to get this sheep back with the other sheep. And I couldn't catch it. Never did. It would be too heavy. So I thought, I don't know how to get the sheep back in. And this voice said, you do know what to do. Just go to the office at the farm, talk to the farmer. You don't know what to do, but he'll know what to do. So that's what I did. I went to the local park. I said, there's a sheep escape. She rang the farmer. He came and collected it. So that's what it says. You don't know what to do, but I do. Come to me. Speak to me. Surrender to me. I'll tell you what to do. So I just took a love, and although I couldn't cure of that disease, I penetrated it. I got through it. I was impervious to it when I was around her, because the nature of alcohol, as you know, is it. My sister became quite demonic, and my brother as well became very dark when they had their episodes, and that couldn't present itself in front of me because I just had this panacea of love. And so I learned a lot, not least that, alcohol, is a catalyst for fear, and fear shrinks your world. Your perceptions become very limited and very dark. And my brother went from tripping the light fantastic and going to change the world to being afraid to leave the stool in the kitchen in a tiny little flat in one of the worst areas in the city. And when he did leave it, he only left it to sleep in a tent in the hallway. And he said, and even that wasn't safe because demons kept trying to get into his tent. So I watched my brother's life shrink, and he taught me about fear. He said, don't listen to fear, because fear will shrink your reality.
The interesting thing about almost every single problem that humans have comes down to fear.
Yeah.
Almost everything, you can look at it, it's like
very true.
Behaviors are dictated by fear, even when there isn't evidence that there's anything to be afraid of, real evidence, between your ears. You can just scare I have a friend who used to say, because you want to get scared, think scary thoughts.
Yeah.
I watched it last night with my wife, started to go down the rabbit hole of getting into the future and not getting these things that have presented themselves, which didn't even exist 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And what if I don't get it? And then this is going to happen, and then this, and then this. And I'm watching you, and I do it myself. I mean, it's like you're scaring the shit out of yourself for no reason, because right now in this chair in the kitchen, you're fine. Yeah. Nothing's happening.
Exist, yeah. What I learned myself
he was able
about
to stop
fear,
it.
yeah, I learned that there was only one legitimate fear. All the other ones were spurious. All the other ones were temporal. The one legitimate fear is the fear of being separated from our source, whatever you want to call that. You call it God, or you call it the universe, or singularity. And they say specifically in Judaism that the beginning of wisdom is when we recognize that is the only fear. So my job is to keep myself close to the will of that source and always in the sight of that source. In other words, I live I live very virtuously as much as I can. I'm the same as everybody. I make mistakes, but I live virtuously because I understand the rules of this fixed planet. And all the other fears that present themselves, and they do present themselves, especially when I start talking to people like you about the truth, I recognize that each of those fears contains a tincture of light. I mean, if I'm able to absorb that fear, 99% of it, a three-dimensional monster turns into a two-dimensional cartoon and it dissipates. And the effulgence that's in it comes across to me. So I'm able to take that light. But exactly what you said as well, Bob, if we allow a fear to stay in us, it blocks light. So it prevents light or consciousness or energy from flowing. It also acts as a negative filter for light. So this beautiful light that we receive comes through the negative filter of this perception or this belief or this concept or this cognition, and it projects onto our reality and it becomes very, very real for people. So I recognize when I'm able to overcome a fear, I'm not really overcoming a fear. I'm just converting ignorance into knowledge. I'm converting darkness into light. I'm converting a monster into consciousness. And then that consciousness becomes my new filter. So when this light comes in, it comes out through a very beautiful filter. So fear is good, fear is bad. If you believe it, it's going to, what was it Milton said, the mind is its own place. It can create a heaven out of hell. It can create a hell out of heaven. But once you recognize it and understand it, you can start to monitor thoughts and recognize that they're not your own unless you engage them and identify with them. Reality exists at the level of engagement. So you learn to start being very choosy about the thoughts you engage. And if a thought presents itself that's fearful, all I have to do is check whether that's conscience talking to me, whether that's God talking to me through the medium of conscience and saying you're falling out of alignment, or whether it's just a divided energy, trying to trick me off the path. So, and if it's not a real fear, then I've got the choice whether to eschew it and deny it, or whether to bring it in and convert it. If it gets too close, it will get converted anyway because it will fall into my vortex. But you're right. It's we did a film once called The Pyramid Texts, and there was a Jewish gentleman in the audience, and he said, "You probably don't realise it at the moment. The film was about fear and about how it alters and directs people's lives, but this terror barrier which blocks people from, their potential." And he said, what you're talking about here with fear is more powerful than the sexual energy. It's more powerful than anything else. It's the one thing that keeps people contained. But if you can convert it, then you can pick up all the riches on the kingdom on the other side of it. But you're absolutely right. Not many people talk about it. It's one of those unconscious things that is constantly being used to corral people. Place them where they want, put them where they want, get them into the state where they want to buy something, to sell something, to be something. Once we realize that it has no power, once we realize that if fear is not engaged, the Buddha called it, he said, I have been freed from denotation by consciousness. So awareness freed him from the labels. But I'm saying that like it's easy. It's not easy. When it presents itself, our our sympathetic nervous system is, I think Krishnamurti said, these things are thousands of years old. So you've got a very powerful force that wants you to freeze or run away or fight. And all of them will probably be inappropriate. Once you recognize it and you're able to turn into it, and if you've got the courage to stand there and absorb its posturing, it will quickly dissipate. Once you recognize that it's not real, it won't even approach, because it will be evaporated at the moment of approach. That's just, like I said, that's an expansion of consciousness. That's just having a broader, a wider broadband.
Well, I love all this stuff. I could talk about this for days. It's, because there really is nothing else
that's it.
other than what we're talking about in a sense of, how do you live and how do you perceive the world, and what do you do to not fall victim to these traps that the mind and the ego creates for us. But, one of the things that I find, and it comes up a lot in this podcast, is when people have traumatic experiences as children or anytime really, and the traumas can vary in severity and depending on the person, how they're affected by it. And I know I was reading your bio, and you had a fairly significant trauma at 11 years old, and how that trauma can live in the body and get reactivated by things later in life. And then you react as if the trauma is really happening fresh, again. It might be 10 years later, it might be, and it could be every week, as far as, the body knows. The body it is that great book, The Body Keeps the Score, talks about this a lot. And so when somebody has, and maybe you can talk about your own situation, how you were able to mitigate the effects of that trauma that you were subjected to I think you were 11 or something like that.
Yeah, I was groomed and abused or attacked or assaulted by a beloved martial arts teacher when I was 11. And you could say that it put me out that much when I was 11, but by the time I was 40, I was out by a country mile. So I was psychotically jealous. I was, prone to deep depressions and violent outbursts.
Sure.
I didn't really have any autonomy, So,
well, you're having part of yourself taken from you.
Yeah,
that is yours.
That's exactly right.
It doesn't belong to anybody else. And somebody that does something like that is, I don't even know if those kind of people even realize the damage they're doing. It doesn't really matter if they do it, because it's still just as horrific.
Well, if the thing is, Bob, is, they leave a parasite in you, or they give you a virus like a schema, but they've got a parasite in them as well. So I would say that there is a greater force outside of them with tentacles working through different people. So it gives the virus to you, you pass the virus to me, it grows in you, it feeds on you, it takes over your autonomy. So you're entangled with it. You no longer know the difference between you and the parasite. It rises, and when it rises, you think its thoughts are your thoughts, and it thinks it's your thoughts are your thoughts. It acts through you. It creates karma in the world for you. So the honourable Dr. Jekyll is always picking up the bill for the dishonourable Mr. Hyde. But this is all going on unconsciously because it's a covert energy. Eckhart Tolle would call it a semi-autonomous thought form or a pain body. There's lots of names for it, but it leaves a parasite in you. But it's no good. It's not that, people have to take responsibility for what they do, but they're victims as well. Anybody that acts in an evil manner is a victim of evil. So the evil itself, or the parasite or the parasitical force, is an external force to people. It's the principal force on this spinning planet, I would say. This principality. It's not something people like to talk about very much, but if we're going to get rid of this virus, it's no good me battering the person that gave it to me. I need to clear the virus from me, this parasite from me. And I do that by forgiving it, by recognizing it, by no longer engaging it, no longer identifying with it, no longer feeding it, and giving it over to the force of causation. When I give it over, this is something the old rabbis used to say, which I love. If you see somebody that's harmed you, run after them and serve them, because they have something of yours, exactly as you said, and you need it back. They've stolen a part of your autonomy. You have something of theirs, and you're entangled, you're bound together by it. You have their parasite. So you give that back. The moment you do that, the nature of the parasite is killed or liberated, and the effulgence comes across to you. But you effectively disentangle yourself from the abuser by giving them over to a greater force. They have to face their own karma, their own atonement, and you can go on with the business of cleaning up the mess that this person or this energy through this person's occurred. Now, the energy itself is an intelligence that absolutely wants me to hate the person that abused me, because the hate feeds the parasite. Dissonance feeds the parasite. Confusion, anxiety, the need for witness revenge, all of that. What fed my parasite most was confusion, dissonance. That's a legitimate force that it uses to keep you locked. It triggers your sympathetic nervous system, so it keeps you in a state of anxiety. It triggers shame and confusion, so you don't want to talk to people about it. It intimates that you're responsible for it. You know, it would say to me, "You led this guy on," and then later on, other people would say to me, "Did you lead him on?" And I'm like, absolutely cognitively dissonant. I'm 11. What do you mean, did I leave him on? I've hardly kissed a girl. I don't even understand what you mean. So you've got all that going in your head. So this parasite is thinking through you and saying it's your fault. You must be partly responsible. Even when I went to the police station, the policeman, this was when I was older, he asked me whether I had an erection. In other words, did you enjoy it? He had a strange smile. So, you know, he was kind of saying, did you lead him on at some point? And I'm thinking, I'm a child. This is the confusion around abuse. So me hating on the person that did it isn't going to help. I've got to find a higher level of panacea, which is compassion. Compassion means I recognize that this has happened on this guy's shift, but he's also possessed. Possessed to the point that he doesn't even think he's abused me. He thinks he's forming a relationship. He's an adult, I'm a child. He thinks he's forming a relationship. He doesn't know he's done anything wrong. So all I can do when I finally meet him, when I'm kind of nearly 40, is offer him my forgiveness. Now, I've got a choice when I meet him. The universe put us together in a cafe, just me and him. I looked across, hadn't seen him for 20 years, and there he was. And it gave me a choice. You can either go over and destroy this man, and I have the ability to do that. I was a seasoned bouncer. I was a world-class martial artist. You know, I was a full-time teacher in martial arts. Or you can forgive him. And I absolutely knew as I walked across the no man's land, you know, from my bunker to his chair, that if I was physical with him in any way and violent, it would be a moment of gratification followed by a bigger parasite in me. It would feed on the violence, because pain bodies feed off pain. They feed off drama. So when I forgave him, there's a lovely line in the Zohar. It says, if you're going to forgive somebody, first injure them. And it means before you forgive somebody, injure them with the truth, because it's very difficult to forgive somebody. I could go over and say, I forgive you, and he might want to kick off. But he said, injure them first. So I injured him by saying, this is your rationality. This is what you said happened. This is what you believed happened. But I'm going to tell you, I was a child. I was not complicit. And what you did to me absolutely destroyed my life for 20 years. Because even when we were separated, you know, even though I hadn't seen him for 20 years, that man, even over space and time, was still abusing me, because the parasite would ignite and my own hands would betray me. I would physically hurt myself and I would sexually hurt myself. And then afterwards I would be racked with shame and promised I'd never do it again. But it was a parasite working through me. So I injured him first by telling him the truth. This is what you did to me. And I'm not going to let you rationalize it. And then I said to him, I'll forgive you. And when I forgave him, I created a separation from us. So he no longer had his parasite, only the residue of it. He wandered off some years later, lots of historical crimes caught him up, and he ended up killing himself in a hotel room. And I went away and started to work on the damage he'd done in me and the damage I'd done in the world as a consequence to the damage he'd done in me. Because obviously every single decision I made after that abuse was exactly as you so insightfully said, was coming through the filter of fear. Everything I did, I orchestrated my whole life to avoid being in a situation where somebody could pin me and control me and abuse me. So when I was a boy, Bob, I was pretty, I had long hair, I looked like a girl, I was often mistaken for a girl, but I was very much a boy. And I didn't realize it until I wrote a film about it. And the film was like a process of individuation, that I cauliflowered my ears, I got my nose broke, I smashed my hands up, I built a back the size of the side of a cow. I covered myself in war paint all over my body, which all said, don't come near me, I'm dangerous. And I learned skills so I could kill in 30 different languages. But inside, I was still a terrified child. Even as a seasoned bouncer, I was still terrified. And I was constantly worried about being exposed. And the more violent I was, the bigger this parasite got. I got very big. I was nearly 16 stone, and I could really have a fight. But when I stood in front of that guy, the truth fell over me. It kind of like a veil fell, and I saw the truth. I can't be violent with this person. If I'm violent with this person, I will not get rid of this parasite. So abuse is possession. There's no doubt about that to me. It's a parasitical possession. If that parasite isn't removed very quickly and very early, you could call it a devil or a demon or a divided thought or a schema. There's lots of names for it. Or Eckhart Tolle calls it a pain body. But if it's not removed very quickly, it obviously feeds off its host and expands. And as you said, it steals your autonomy. Your decisions are no longer yours. It lets you think they're yours, but they're not yours. So every decision you make from then on in is determined by that. And the nature of the parasite is that it feeds off fear and confusion and pain. It feeds off the chemicals released from that. So it constantly places you into situations of drama or situations of depression. And it feeds off and situations of seduction as well, because my crime was a sexual crime against me. It left me with a disproportionate penchant for sex, for masturbation, and for pornography and all these other things. So all of that stuff fed this parasite. He got stronger and stronger. My autonomy, my will force, my causal body got smaller and smaller. And in the end, I was like Odysseus coming back from the Trojan Wars. I'd found my kingdom in Ithaca, but it had been overrun. I had no autonomy there at all. And my job then, once I recognized this, I recognized it by piecemeal, because I'm an autodidact and I wanted to understand my suffering. I just gradually started to understand that all of these negatives in me that come from this parasite, I could remove by no longer feeding them. So when the lust rose, I denied it. I didn't feed it. When the anger rose, I didn't feed it. When the psychotic jealousy rose, I didn't feed it. This is what Gurdjieff would call the work. This is about me winning my body back, winning my territories back. And over time, I was able to win my physical body back. I was able to win my breath body back, my mind and my intellect body, and all of that using my will force. So I was a guy that was divided, or yes, I was a guy that was divided many times, and I found unity. I found a unified body. As I found a unified body, I started to attract spirit or consciousness, because all of these things I converted into consciousness. They all contain consciousness. Even the darkness contains consciousness. So when I was able to stand in front of it and absorb 99% of it, that consciousness came over to me and I expanded. Then I was able to see the world in a different way. So now I'm living in a grade 2 listed barn in Stratford, in one of the nicest towns in the world. But when I was possessed by this parasite, I lived in a paint peeling, wallpaper peeling, damp house in a difficult marriage, in a difficult part of a difficult city, in a violent city. That's not a change of location, Bob. That's a change of perception.
Yeah.
But the filters have changed because I've removed the parasitical filters. Of course, we're in this dualistic world, and they're always going to try and get back in again. But that's my job, to keep myself in a singularity.
I was wondering, that was very articulate and beautiful. Thank you. I was wondering if, I'm assuming something, that you were attracted to martial arts from the side of, I got to protect myself and kick ass if anybody messes with me. But when I don't know if that's correct, but it seems like it would be. And then through studying martial arts, did that open up other ways of looking at the world? Did it, one, instill a certain level of confidence? And isn't there, a spiritual underpinning to a lot of the martial arts teachings that maybe was a catalyst for these things you're talking about, to arrive at a place where you could change your perception?
Absolutely correct. Yeah. Because I reached a high level in martial arts, because eventually I gave up my job. As my consciousness expanded, I realized I didn't have to go to work. I've got enough skills and enough information to teach martial arts and write about it. So I started to do that. So yeah, this idea of getting to the very top level physically, and then that spilling into the psychology, and I started to really expand with the psychology of the martial arts. I studied psychology to like a master's degree level, especially fear and the endocrine system, and how to manage that through breathing. And then that expanded as I got to the top of the psychological level and was able to manage life and death situations as a bouncer. It's a very violent city. 4 of my friends were murdered when I was on the doors. It's automatically spilled into the spiritual or the Buddha aspect of martial arts. So this egregore around me, this spirit around me, was saying, this is temporal, this is limited. You're in a dualistic part of your development, and you're creating lots of karma. Not all of it's good. Why don't you try and go to the level beyond perception? Why don't you go to the level beyond that, which is the Buddha? So I'd started to think about forgiveness. I'd started to think about the idea of that, because being physical with somebody was very easy for me, because I knew my way around the sympathetic nervous system, so I could control mine whilst destroying yours. Just with the use of mudras, with the use of sound, Kotodama Gaku, the use of magic sound. So I could use sound to trigger people's adrenaline. I could use certain phrases that would literally lift people out of the present moment and put them 2 days into the future, by saying to them, I'm going to find out where you live, and I'm going to come round to your house when you're having tea with your mum. And so suddenly the person was transporting out of their body to the future, and say, this is what I'm going to do. And I say, do you really want that in your life? And they would go, no. I said, then walk away. So I was able to start managing my own endocrine system, my own adrenals, and also managing theirs. I could climb inside people and use their adrenaline, because I had that knowledge, because I'd developed this consciousness. So it made me like a magician, really. When I was working on the doors, I knew I had skills and knowledge that could take somebody out of a fight before they even realized they're in it. And then this egregore of the door, this spirit of the door, says, don't you want to go a bit further than that? Don't you want to go higher than that? Don't you want to go beyond this physical? Because you've learned about the preemptive strike. You've learned how to knock somebody out. You've learned how to shatter their sympathetic nervous system. You've learned how to manage that and climb inside them and literally take over their autonomy. But don't you want to go bigger than that? You said you've been in hundreds of fights. Don't you want to know why there's so many monsters queuing up at the door to fight with you? And I did want to know. And it showed me that all of those monsters were monsters I'd created through my own fearful perception. I'd created them and forgot them. So I was developing techniques to defend myself against monsters that I'd created and forgotten. I said to my wife once, this city is so violent. Everywhere I go, there's violence. And she said, Geoff, there's a common denominator. It's everywhere you go. I was in fights at christenings. I was in fights at weddings. I knocked a man out at a christening and knocked him down a set of metal stairs because he was violent. And I was a bouncer. And everybody bought me drinks and patted me on the back. And that was the kind of reality I lived in. And the egregore of the door showed me that that was the reality I'd created. And I'd literally created the infrastructure for violence, violent people, and violent encounters everywhere I went. That's how powerful perception is. Once I understood that, because I had weapons in every room of my house, Bob, every room of my house, even in my car. Once I understood that I was fully entangled in violence and I'd become a violent person. I was Nietzsche's, when Nietzsche says, be careful when you hunt the dragon, that you don't become the dragon. I'd become a dragon myself. So I started to see that and I started to reverse it. So instead of having weapons in every room of my house, I had books on philosophy, books on religion, the revealed books and the hidden books. I've got, I started to write about higher levels of training. I got rid of all the weapons. I stopped working on the doors. And this is an interesting thing. As I stopped working on the doors, the infrastructure slowly over the years started to disappear. So you won't find the infrastructure in the clubs I worked in anymore because they're gone. They've either been knocked down, made into houses, turned into hairdressers, all sorts of things. And here's an interesting thing as well, Bob. The guy I forgave, I properly forgave him. I forgave him from a level of compassion. And I developed that compassion. I fed that compassion. I was driving down the road one day over the ring road where I used to live, and I noticed that the boys' club where this guy abused me was gone. It had been knocked down and it had been made into a sports centre. Isn't that powerful? Yeah. Forgiveness doesn't just take the parasite out of you. It removes the infrastructure of the parasite from the world. This is something I'm certain of. This is something I'm absolutely certain of. I know if there are people listening out there now, I know that when the fear hits you, when the anxiety hits you, when the depression knocks on your door, I know that it takes a tremendous amount of courage because it absolutely feels real. But I'm telling you, it's not real. There's only one legitimate fear, and that's the fear of being separated from God or separated from your source, the mains electric. And that's a good fear because it's the beginning of wisdom. Because once you get that, when I say the beginning of wisdom, it's the beginning of keeping yourself in a singularity at your own geometric point in your own soul. And once you do that, you start to receive wisdom. You start to receive, in Judaism, they call it chokmah, means like wisdom sparks. And you can develop those like seeds and expand them. And you can manifest them in the world in a very beautiful way. So that if you're out, even if you're just sitting in a cafe and nobody knows you, that cafe is better protected, and that cafe is more industrious and more profitable, and the people in it are more inspired and happier just because you're there. Not because of you, the personality, but because of the light that's emitting from you. So as you contract the ego, the consciousness expands. As consciousness expands, ego contracts, and that's a piecemeal process. So it's that's what when I say to people that working as a bouncer was the most metaphysical experience of my life. It didn't teach me just to guard the door of a shitty nightclub. It taught me to guard the door to my heart. When I say heart, I mean in the esoteric sense of the heart as the causal body, the will force. Because when a parasite takes over our causal body, it literally the causal body is the body of conscious will. That's where we create cause in the world. So it takes over and it creates cause in the world in a dramatic and unkind way, which brings it back food. The more drama it has, the more it feasts. So winning our autonomy back is everything. I mean, that's what Odysseus is about. It's a metaphor about waking up You go, oh, I've woke up spiritually. Well, so what? You've woke up, but you haven't got control of your thinking. You haven't got control of your body. You haven't even got control of your world. You want to change the world, but you can't even change your own waist measurement. So you have to start to win those territories back. And you do that using the will force. So this is what the door taught me. And this is what forgiveness taught me. It's nothing to do with letting somebody off. I haven't got the power to do that. Unless somebody is contritely remorse and penitent, they cannot be forgiven. And it's not me that forgives. What forgiveness for me means I'm just going to give him over to a force that he will have to face. I'm going to separate myself from him by getting rid of the parasite. So I'm going to disentangle.
Right. You can't force another person to be contrite. They have to do that themselves. I used to always say, when people would say this person is a terrible person and they need to be punished, or they deserve to have these terrible things happen. And I'm like, well, first of all, who are you to decide what somebody else deserves? But second of all,
are you omniscient? Are you omnipotent?
Yeah. In my mind sometimes, sure. But the other thing is, and I would say this, not that I'm any kind of, wise guy, wise man or anything, but I'd say, think about it. Their own life is enough punishment.
Yeah.
Far more than what you could mete out to them. You might be able to physically harm them, but them walking around with the knowledge of what they've done and the kind of person they had to be to do those things that they've done is so much punishment. It's 24/7 anguish. It's got to be.
We don't have to look hard to see that.
No, you really don't. And then ultimately,
I had a guy living around the corner from us. And sorry, Bob, carry on.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the next step beyond that is some level of sadness for their predicament and some level of compassion for their inability to remove themselves from their own self-imposed predicament. Not to say I want to be around them, because I probably don't, but it's a very sad thing to see human beings trapped because of either how they've reacted or not reacted to something that's happened, or created something because of a belief system that is not of any value or true.
It's very true. It's very true. Yeah.
Tell me about the story you were just going to tell me a story.
Yeah, I was just saying you don't have to have witness revenge. The law of equal and opposite returns levels the books. It balances the books. It might not do it in front of you, but it will do it in its own time, its own way. Well, we had a guy living around from us who was a millionaire. He was a drug dealer, and everybody said karma doesn't work, causation doesn't work, because he's getting away with it. I said, how closely are you looking? I said, his door's kicked down by the police at 2 a.m. every 2 weeks. His wife is on Valium. She's deeply depressed. He's 6 stone overweight. He's very unhappy. I said, his friends are afraid of him, and he's dealing with some very, very dark characters. I said, he may have temporarily escaped judicial law, but he's absolutely living in the universal law all the time. I felt tremendous compassion for him. And eventually it caught up with him as well, and he ended up doing 2 life terms. But I think the problem is people don't understand the rules, the fixed rules of this moving planet. Because they don't understand the rules, they don't understand causation, you can't really even begin to work. Because until you understand and acknowledge causation, that everything that goes out returns, you can't really start to work, because you're constantly thinking you can get away with something, or somebody else can get away with something. I'm actually frightened not to forgive, because I'm frightened of not being forgiven. I know how many bad things I've done. And I can only be forgiven to the level I forgive others. If my son or my daughter or my wife has done something wrong, I want them to be forgiven. If I'm going to demand justice and recompense from the other people in the world that have done things wrong, I need to demand the same from myself. And there isn't a person on this spinning planet that hasn't done something wrong. We all contribute to the karmic fatberg, all of us. Whether it's a venal sin or whether it's a mortal sin, it all contributes. Everybody's responsible for everything. If there is a leak anywhere, There's a leak everywhere. So I might not be able to do much about my neighbor who's doing something wrong, but I can absolutely change what I'm doing. I can change what I think. I can change what I say. I can change what I do. When I know that that's going to go out, not just, as some invisible karma, but as a living spirit. What I think and say and do is going to be released as a living spirit, and it's going to act in the world, and it's going to bring back the profit to me, like Frankenstein's monster. It's going to find its way back and demand an explanation. It's going to demand a balance. So I know that. I'm certain of that. I'm possession of what they call in Islam yaqeen, certainty. It's an attribute of God. It's one of the 99 names of Allah. I am certain about causation, which means, as an intelligent person, I do not think, say, or do bad things. And if I do, I redress it very, very quickly because I don't want to be seeing those things again. So it makes me either neutral and still and quiet, or it makes me do what I'm doing now, which is just to impose as much positive light into the world as possible. My biggest message with this book, not my sad story about being abused, but the excitement that there is life after abuse, not just life, but better life, an improved life, because the abuse that happened to me set me on a path of learning. And I'm sat here with what I understand now, and what I understand is a grace. I've been able to understand the exegesis of my experiences just because I've been led to study, and my responsibility and the privilege is that I try and pass that light on. So if somebody listens to this and it triggers a bit of hope or a bit of inspiration, or even if it repels them, it's okay. I'm still a teacher to them. I'm still giving them some light. If it repels them, then that can be a Dharma gate. If the word God repels them, that's a Dharma gate. Go through it, explore it. What does it mean to you? Why is that so offensive? What have you been told about it? And what's it blocking you from? More importantly, 3 letters, G-O-D. What's it blocking you from? Maybe it's blocking you from, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of divine verses. It could block you from the Torah, could block you from the New Testament, could block you from Christ, it could block you from the Zohar, the Kabbalah, which are the exegesis of the Torah. It could block you from the revealed Bible, but it could also, which is a binary book, it could also block you from the quantum Bible, which is the secret readings. When you read the book and you take something intuitive from it, like the Sufi concept of scattering. You read something like the Zohar, makes no sense at all, but the soul understands it. Makes no sense at all, but the devil understands it, because it goes in like an antibody, and it cleans out anything that's not good. But that's you go into a book like that, you can be prevented from looking at a book like that by the house ghost of a single word. A single word. I don't take yes for an answer. I want to know what's in there. I've been absolutely privileged to be able to go into these books, and they're only really explaining to me my own experiences. This is what happened to you, and this is what it really meant. You think you were learning how to fight on a nightclub door. You weren't. You were learning how to stop creating monsters with perception to it.
I liked what you were just saying about sometimes things don't make sense in the words, but it speaks to another part of you that you're not even aware it's speaking to. I always thought poetry was like that. It's great poetry. You go, why do I feel this way now? Because a lot of what just happened didn't really make sense in the words, or even, well, of course, music is always that.
They say that the soul reads it like a barcode. You don't have to understand it. The ego will say, put this down. This doesn't make any sense. The soul will say, we understand it. So you discipline yourself. So I was emptied of all of this negativity that was in me. And then I was refilled by the spirit that was contained in the letters and the words and the verses and the spaces within the Zohar. But I did the same with the Bhagavad Gita, which led to the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata led to the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam led to the Vedas, which is 500,000 verses. But, interestingly, Bob, all of them said the same thing. The world is insoluble. It's unassailable. This battlefield you're in cannot be won. You can't win. But if you turn to me, if you surrender to me, stepping over that battlefield will be as simple as stepping over the hoof print of a calf in the mud. So it's saying, instead of trying to understand the world from a binary human intellectual perspective, let's go quantum. Come to me. This God, this spirit, a Hashem is quantum. It said, I will be your sat nav, and I will guide you through this labyrinth, and it will be a walk in the park, because I'll tell you when to turn left and when to turn right. I'll tell you when to move forward and when to stop. I'll tell you when to say yes and when to say no. I'll tell you how much and when. You will become my cosmic postman. Will post little letters of cosmic light for me as you pass through. But surrender to me. That's very difficult, because the ego has to die for that to happen. So I don't make any decisions now. I just go purely on my inner tutor. That's what the Zohar says. Your soul will teach you. Once you're introduced to it, your soul will teach you. And then we get these tinctures of light, or these attractive forces, or the philosopher's stone. There's lots of names for it. Chi, Ki, all different gradations of spirit. And they coat the soul. They Christ it. And it kind of gives you a wider broadband. It enables you to receive more and to deliver more without becoming burnt out.
Well, I love that you've made this your life's work, or it's not that you've made it, that you've become it. It sounds what it sounds like. And let's, if people want to find out a little bit more about your story and forgiveness, the title of your book is what, and where can they get it?
The book is called 99 Reasons to Forgive, and Revenge is Not One. That's the title of the book. They can get it from Amazon. It's out on the 31st of March, so they can pre-order it now. I've only got one. I'm not on the internet. I'm not on the World Wide Web, but I do post on there. And I've got my friend Gabriella runs my Instagram page. So I've got one place on the internet, and it's Geoff_Thompson_official. And the Geoff is with a G, E-O-F-F, and the Thompson's with a P. So Geoff Thompson Official. And that's all the stuff I post stuff on there all the time.
Okay. That's an Instagram
an Instagram account, yeah, Geoff Thompson Official.
Wonderful. So folks,
and there's lots of my films online that they can watch free. There's lots of short films I've done. Writing films and writing books has been my method of individuation, of bringing up this darkness and integrating it into consciousness, or convert it into consciousness. So writing has been my method of doing that.
Well, it's a powerful tool, that's for sure. It's
it really is.
I don't know any really, there's talking and there's writing, and I guess movies are good too, but there's something about having it written down that makes it eternal in some way.
That's very true. That's very true. Once it's written down, it's in the British Library here, but it's also in the Akashic.
Right. You can't
once I've written something, I'm so pleased because I know it's there forever.
Right. You can't unwrite it. It's been written.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time, and what a wonderful talk. You're delightful to speak with, and someday I hope that we can intersect in person. I don't know how that'll ever happen unless you come here.
Or if you're over this way, if you're ever coming over to see our old friend Shakespeare, I'll take you for a coffee. It's been lovely talking to you, Bob, and I really appreciate we're talking the same language, which is lovely.
Yeah. Thank you. You have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Bob.
Much appreciation for you folks listening in to The Exploding Human. Please check out the website, theexplodinghuman.com, the YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. Geoff Thompson, thank you so much one more time. I really appreciated talking to you. I hope we get to speak again. Have a great day, folks, and don't forget to get Geoff's book, 99 Reasons to Forgive, and Revenge Ain't One. Thank you.